The black vellum invitation arrived during breakfast, sealed with Blackthorn's silver wolf. Evelyn Hart stared at the words, "Former consort," beneath her name. A smaller line ordered her to use the servants' entrance and attend alone. Across the table, Alpha King Rowan Ashford read the insult without touching it. Eli slapped porridge onto the seal. Rose laughed. Evelyn folded the page once, carefully, then breathed. "Will you go?" Rowan asked. He could have forbidden it under royal protection, yet his voice held no command. Evelyn looked at her twins, at their gray-silver eyes, and remembered another hall, another seal, a man deciding her fate. "Yes," she said. "He invited me to witness his coronation." Her thumb covered the insult. "He will witness mine." 22 months earlier, Blackthorn's bells summoned judgment. 300 wolves filled the great hall, but no one spoke when Mason Blackwood raised the pack ledger. Blue fire trembled inside the security crystal beside him, showing a hooded woman entering the archive. Celeste Vane stood at his right shoulder, pale and composed, holding Evelyn's Luna ring between 2 fingers. Mason's jaw was rigid. His wolf wanted certainty. His pride had already manufactured it. "These roots were sold to Frostfang," Mason said. 6 patrolmen died. Evelyn kept both hands at her sides, though one protected the small velvet box hidden inside her coat. "Open a sovereign audit," she answered. "Compare the ink, the time stamps, and my travel record." Counselor Gideon Vale leaned forward. "Delay invites invasion." Celeste lowered her lashes. "The pack needs an alpha willing to act tonight." Mason looked at Evelyn then, and for one brutal heartbeat, she saw the man who had once trusted her with every border and weakness. Then his gaze hardened. The council had threatened to withdraw troops. Frostfang had offered soldiers grain and Celeste. He told himself leadership required sacrifice. He never admitted how often the elders praised Evelyn's judgment above his own. "The evidence is sufficient." "No," Evelyn said softly. The word carried farther than a scream. "Your fear is sufficient." A growl rolled through the hall, but she did not lower her eyes. Mason descended from the dais. His fingers closed around her left hand. For 7 years, that touch had meant safety. Now he twisted the ring free, leaving a circle on her skin and a wound beneath it. Celeste accepted the ring with trembling hands practiced to appear reluctant. The moonstone remained dark. Gideon declared it ceremonial exhaustion. Mason chose to believe him. Evelyn watched Celeste slide the band onto her finger, then opened the velvet box inside her coat, just enough to see 2 infant boots. That morning, Clara had confirmed 2 heartbeats. Evelyn had planned to tell Mason after the session. Mason placed the severance paper before her. "Sign, and leave Blackthorn before dawn." Somewhere behind Evelyn, a woman began to cry. Owen Cross stared at the floor. His silence hurt almost as much as Mason's verdict. Evelyn took the pen. The nib scratched across parchment while the mate bond tightened around her ribs. She signed Evelyn Hart, not Luna Blackwood, and pushed the document back. Mason expected a plea before she reached the doors. Celeste expected rage. Gideon expected confusion he could exploit. Evelyn gave them nothing. She removed the cloak from her shoulders and laid it across the Luna chair. "You have chosen your truth," she said to Mason. "Live beneath it." Then she turned, carrying the boots and 2 unborn heirs toward the winter waiting beyond the hall. At the threshold, the mate bond convulsed. Evelyn's knees nearly folded, but she caught the doorframe and kept moving. Warmth spread beneath her dress. 1 drop struck the toe of a boot inside the box. Mason saw her falter and mistook it for surrender. He waited for her to turn back. She did not. The first life she saved from him would be her own. By the time Evelyn reached Clara Wynn's healer house, snow had soaked through her slippers and blood warmed the inside of her thighs. She refused to use the pack link. Calling for help would alert Mason, and Mason had already chosen whose voice mattered. Another spasm twisted beneath her ribs. Evelyn gripped the gate, dragged herself across the path, and struck the door 3 times. Clara opened it wearing a wool robe, her silver braid loose over one shoulder. Horror erased sleep from her face. She caught Evelyn before she fell and pulled her inside without asking questions. The examination room smelled of willow bark and clean linen. Evelyn clenched her teeth while Clara cut away the stained fabric, pressed a glowing moonstone to her abdomen, and listened. Clara froze. 2 pulses filled the room. delicate but unmistakable. Evelyn stared as the moonstone's pale light divided into twin circles. Her control broke for one moment. A tear slipped into her hair. She covered her mouth, not to silence grief, but to hold the sound of wonder inside. "Two?" she whispered. Clara nodded when Evelyn tried to sit. "Tell me how to keep them both alive." Clara forced her back against the pillow and mixed bitter herbs with water. The severance fever may trigger miscarriage. You need rest, heat, and distance from Silver. Evelyn swallowed everything without complaint. Pain rolled through her body in waves, but her questions remained precise. How much blood was dangerous, how long the fever would last, and whether crossing the border would protect them from Blackthorn. Instead of answering, Clara crossed to a locked cabinet. She removed a gray medical file bearing the council crest and placed it beside the moonstone. Evelyn opened it. The report declared her infertile, genetically incapable of producing an alpha heir. Clara's signature appeared beneath the diagnosis. "I never wrote this," the healer said. "Gideon demanded my seal last winter. I refused, but someone copied it." Cold understanding settled deeper than the bond pain. For months, Mason's advisors had spoken about succession. Celeste's father had offered troops, grain, and a daughter rumored to be fertile. Mason had never accused Evelyn of failing him, yet she remembered every silence after council meetings. Someone had prepared her replacement before the false ledger appeared. Her supposed infertility was manufactured to make betrayal appear necessary. Clara opened a moonstone locket and showed 2 blood slips. One held Evelyn's genuine fertility results, the other carried Clara's original signature. "I kept proof because I knew they would come for it." Evelyn closed the locket around the healer's palm. "Then hide it where Mason cannot reach." Clara searched her face. "He is still their father," Evelyn answered quietly. "Tonight, he became their danger." Outside, boots crunched over snow. Clara extinguished a lamp. Through the window, uniforms moved between the bare trees. Evelyn recognized Jarek, Mason's tracker, but the second man wore no Blackthorn insignia. He checked the road, then drew a silver knife from beneath his coat. Clara reached for the pack link. Evelyn caught her wrist. No. If Mason sent them, he already chose the wrong order. Clara led Evelyn behind a medicine shelf and pressed a concealed latch. A narrow tunnel descended beneath the house, once used to move herbs during sieges. Evelyn pulled on Clara's cloak and tucked the velvet box against her heart. Another contraction seized her, sharper than before. Clara supported her until it passed. "You cannot cross the border alone." Evelyn straightened. "I am not alone anymore." Clara handed her a pouch of herbs and pointed toward the tunnel. A fist struck the front door. "Royal warrant," Jarek called, but another whisper slipped through the wall. Evelyn froze, one hand over the twins. He sounded pleased. "Search the rooms," he told Jarek. "Celeste does not want her brought back." Then his knife scraped free. "She wants the former Luna carried out dead." The tunnel beneath Clara's house narrowed until Evelyn had to turn sideways. Damp stones scraped her shoulders, and each step drove another pulse of severance pain through her abdomen. Behind her, the healer shoved the medicine shelf back into place while fists hammered against the front door. Evelyn did not look back. She pressed Clara's herb pouch beneath her cloak and followed the stale current of air toward freedom. At the first junction, she stopped beside an abandoned supply cart. Clara had explained that the tunnel divided near the old quarantine road. One passage opened south of Blackthorn. The other ended near the neutral pine corridor. Evelyn crushed pine resin, bitter root, and ash between her palms, then rubbed the mixture over her throat, wrists, and fading mate mark. The scent burned her nose but buried her identity. She tore a strip from her blood-stained dress, tied it beneath the cart, and released the brake. The sloping tunnel carried it toward the southern exit with a soft rattle. To any tracker following blood and fear, Evelyn would appear to be fleeing toward the human road. She chose the northern passage instead, one hand braced against the wall, the other protecting the velvet box and its tiny boots. By dawn, she emerged beneath a frozen culvert beyond the last Blackthorn watchtower. Snow had become sleet, needling her face as she crossed an abandoned logging track. The bond stretched behind her like heated wire. Mason was awake now. Somewhere inside the pack house, his wolf would feel the distance increasing, but pride would translate panic into anger. Evelyn knew him well enough to keep walking. The river marking the neutral border roared beneath sheets of broken ice. Evelyn stepped into the water before fear could negotiate. Cold seized her calves, hips, then lungs. Halfway across, a cramp folded her forward and the current dragged her downstream. The moonstone pendant beneath her dress flared warm against her skin. Pale light spread through the water, steadying her heartbeat long enough for her fingers to catch a root. She hauled herself onto the far bank, coughing river water and blood. The twins' heartbeats remained beyond her senses, yet Clara's words lived inside her. 2 pulses, delicate but unmistakable. Evelyn pushed herself upright. 3 hooded figures stepped from the pines. Their clothes were ragged, their faces smeared with mud, but their boots matched in size and polish. Rogues did not receive military issue. "Celeste pays well," the tallest man said. Evelyn moved before he finished. She kicked loose stones down the slope and ran toward the limestone ravine she had mapped years earlier for grain caravans. An arrow hissed past her cheek. The second struck her right side, punching through cloak and flesh. Pain flashed white. She broke the shaft, kept moving, and counted their footsteps through the trees. The ravine narrowed into a shelf above a shale pit. Evelyn crossed the shelf, then drove her heel into the rotten support beneath an old logging bridge. The first attacker followed too quickly. Wood cracked. He and the second man vanished with a scream beneath sliding stone. The tallest leaped clear, landing behind her. His knife carried the bitter scent of silver. Evelyn turned as he lunged. She trapped his wrist against her wounded side, accepted the burst of agony, and drove Clara's iron hairpin beneath his jaw. He collapsed, without a word. Evelyn fell beside him, shaking. The broken arrowhead had slipped from her wound. On its base, beneath the blood, was the stamped balance of the Western Council. Celeste had allies powerful enough to empty official armories. She staggered onward until black stone rose between the trees, carved with Ashen Crown's royal wolf. Her knees struck earth. Riders surrounded her before darkness closed in. A guard pulled the arrowhead from her hand and studied the council mark. Who needs a pregnant Luna dead on royal soil tonight? Evelyn woke with iron around her wrists and fire burning through her right side. The room had no windows, only a lantern, a stone table, and the scent of wet wool. Her cloak was gone. The velvet box still rested beneath her palm, however, wedged against the cot as if someone had understood it mattered. 3 soldiers watched from beyond the bars. The largest entered first. A scar crossed his left brow, and dried blood darkened the collar beneath his armor. "Adrian Cole," he said, "Royal Beta of Ashen Crown. You crossed our border carrying council steel, blackthorn blood, and enough false scent to confuse trained wolves. Give me one reason not to return you to Alpha Mason. Because whoever ordered my death also poisoned your outpost." Adrian's expression did not change, but the younger guard behind him shifted. Evelyn had noticed the gray cast beneath their skin, the tremor in Adrian's hand, and the bitter metallic odor rising from a cup on the table. "Your soldiers are not exhausted," she continued. "They are being dosed with silver." Adrian pushed the cup toward her. "Convenient." Evelyn leaned close without touching it. Crushed wolfsbane, willow bark, and silver filings. The mixture hid the scent until warmed. From the infirmary came a violent crash, followed by choking. One guard reached for the door. Adrian caught the frame instead, his knuckles whitening as pain seized his chest. "Unlock me," Evelyn said. Adrian stared at her through the spasm. "If I wanted you dead, Beta, I would let you finish that cup." He opened the cell. Evelyn nearly collapsed when she stood, but she forced her wounded side straight and entered the infirmary. 2 soldiers convulsed on narrow beds, while a healer prepared another spoonful of the same medicine. She knocked it aside, then ordered charcoal, salt, hot water, and every untainted herb in the room. The healer bristled until Adrian doubled over beside him. Evelyn crushed the charcoal with the hilt of a knife, mixed it with bitterroot, and made each man swallow. Her own vision blurred, yet she monitored their breathing until the tremors eased. Adrian recovered first. Suspicion remained in his eyes, but something harder had replaced contempt. "How did you know?" Evelyn pointed toward the supply ledger hanging beside the medicine cabinet. 3 batches arrived under relief codes used only during winter famine. It is early autumn. Someone needed the shipments waved through without inspection. She turned the page with blood-stained fingers. Each contaminated crate had passed through a merchant house registered in Frostfang territory. The same house appeared on a transport seal stamped by Counselor Gideon Vale. Adrian's jaw tightened. Evelyn tapped a missing inventory line. This is not theft. It is preparation. Poison your soldiers, weaken the border, then blame the pack that benefits from your collapse. What do you want? Adrian asked. Evelyn steadied herself against the cabinet. Royal protection for Dr. Clara Wynne, permission for her to send medical evidence directly to your court, and secrecy regarding my pregnancy. His gaze dropped briefly toward her abdomen. In exchange, I identify every compromised route and every official who signed one. Adrian studied her as if measuring the distance between desperation and deceit. Then he removed his signet and pressed it into hot wax on a messenger order. Clara gets protection. Your condition stays inside this room. He did not return Evelyn to the cell. Instead, he placed the ledger before her and ordered the doors locked from the outside. At sunrise, a royal courier arrived. Adrian handed him 2 packets, one containing Evelyn's findings, the other the council arrowhead. She expected a request for asylum. Instead, she glimpsed the cover page before the packet closed. Her name had been entered days earlier, in Rowan Ashford's own hand. Not under Fugitive Luna, not under Blackthorn Spy, beneath a colder designation. Witness marked for elimination before she reached his border. The gates of Ashen Crown opened beneath a sky the color of steel. Evelyn rode between 2 royal guards, one hand pressed against the bandage covering her right side. The palace rose from black cliffs ahead, severe rather than beautiful, its towers carved with wolves whose stone eyes seemed to judge every visitor. No servants welcomed her. Adrian led her directly into the royal council chamber, where Alpha King Rowan Ashford stood over a table crowded with maps, ledgers, and sealed reports. He was taller than Evelyn expected, dressed in plain black instead of ceremonial gold. His power filled the room without effort, but his expression revealed nothing. Rowan dismissed the guards. Blackthorn calls you a traitor. The Western Council calls you unstable. 3 dead men carried orders to prevent you from reaching my territory. His gray eyes settled on the blood seeping through her bandage. Tell me why I should challenge them for you. You should not, Evelyn answered. Adrian glanced at her sharply. Rowan remained still. Do not challenge anyone because you believe me, she continued. Challenge them because their numbers are wrong. Give me access to your supply records. If I cannot prove where the poison entered your system, send me back. Her wolf recoiled at the words, but Evelyn kept her face calm. Rowan studied her for several silent seconds. He had seen desperate people offer loyalty, secrets, and bodies in exchange for protection. Evelyn offered work. You have 24 hours, he said. The Sovereign Archive occupied 3 underground floors beneath the palace. Evelyn spent the first 6 hours comparing shipping dates, merchant codes, and emergency relief permits. Pain tightened around her ribs whenever she reached for a higher shelf, yet she refused the chair Adrian placed nearby. By midnight, she had arranged 12 ledgers across the floor. The poisoned medicine, stolen silver, and altered patrol schedules all passed through the same 3 merchant houses. Each company had changed ownership within 1 week of Celeste arriving at Blackthorn. Adrian crouched beside her. That proves coordination, not your innocence. Evelyn opened the Blackthorn ledger Rowan's agents had obtained. This signature does. Quote, her name appeared beneath an order transferring patrol maps. It looked perfect, including the curved final stroke she used on formal decrees. Evelyn placed a conference record beside it. On the date of the transfer, she had been 300 miles away, negotiating Blackthorn's grain treaty before 16 witnesses. The ink contains frostroot, she said. Blackthorn stopped using it 2 years before this entry. Frostfang still uses it. Rowan had entered without either of them hearing. He lifted the forged page toward the lamp, watching blue crystals shimmer inside the ink. Someone created evidence for a verdict already decided. Yes, and someone expected you to die before questioning it. Evelyn rose too quickly. The room tilted. She caught the table, but a sharp cramp moved through her abdomen. Rowan stepped forward, then stopped before touching her. Which healer do you trust? He asked. The question disarmed her more than suspicion had. Clara Wynne. Rowan pressed his royal seal into a sanctuary order. You have 30 days under crown protection. You will work with Adrian, retain access to the archive, and receive treatment from the healer you named. Evelyn stared at the document. What do you require in return? The truth, Rowan said. Not obedience. Later, after she had been escorted to a guarded chamber, Adrian faced his king alone. "She is carrying Blackthorn heirs," Adrian said quietly. Rowan looked toward the closed door through which Evelyn had disappeared. "Find Clara Wynne. Bring her safely. And Mason?" Rowan's expression hardened as he sealed the medical order. "Do not let Blackthorn learn there are 2 heartbeats." 30 days became 3 months, then 9. Because every answer Evelyn uncovered revealed another fracture inside Ashen Crown's supply network. She moved from a guarded guest chamber into the Royal Logistics Office, where maps covered the walls, and exhausted clerks learned not to mistake her quiet voice for softness. Rowan never called her Luna. He called her Chancellor, after she saved 2 mountain villages from starvation before winter arrived early. Her first reform divided the kingdom's central grain reserve among 3 hidden storehouses. Several nobles protested that dispersal looked weak. Evelyn asked which appearance they preferred: weakness before an enemy or smoke above a single burning warehouse. Rowan approved the plan without changing a word. 4 weeks later, saboteurs torched the abandoned depot they believed still held the winter grain. Not one child missed a meal because Evelyn had anticipated vanity. Clara arrived under royal escort near the end of Evelyn's 7th month, carrying the moonstone locket and records she had saved. She examined the scar on Evelyn's right side, the fading silver mate mark, and the twins growing stronger beneath her heart. "You need rest," Clara warned. Evelyn glanced toward 3 evacuation maps on her desk. "They need roads that remain open," she replied. "I can rest after those exist." By spring, Evelyn's network traced poisoned medicine and stolen silver through merchant houses tied to Frostfang. Yet the final route vanished inside the Western Council's private accounts. Adrian wanted arrests. Rowan refused to move without proof strong enough to survive public trial. Evelyn understood his caution, though it frightened her. Powerful men had once called impatience leadership. Rowan's restraint felt different, but trust came slowly to someone who remembered chains. The attack came during a moonless storm. Warning stones flashed red as hired rogues struck 3 border villages and burned the western bridge. Evelyn's first contraction bent her over the council table. Rowan reached for her, but she gripped the map instead. "Open the Shepherd Road," she ordered. "Move children through the quarry. Send warriors east only after civilians clear." Another contraction stole her breath, not her command or judgment. Adrian carried her orders to the Royal Guard. Rowan led the defense himself, but every company moved by Evelyn's routes. The Shepherd Road remained untouched because council maps marked it unusable. By midnight, 400 civilians reached the quarry shelters. Not one evacuation wagon was lost. When Rowan returned bloodied, Evelyn stood beside the communication stones, one hand against her stomach, directing the final retreat through smoke, pain, and thunder. Clara dragged Evelyn toward the healer wing as the palace bells quieted. Rose was born first, furious and loud. Eli followed 7 minutes later, silent until Rowan's voice sounded outside the door. Then he cried, startling everyone. Evelyn held both children against her chest, trembling from exhaustion. Relief came sharp enough to hurt. Beside her bed sat an empty chair where another father might once have stood in another life. Rowan entered only after Clara invited him. He approached the bed like a man nearing sacred ground, his hands clean, his authority left outside. Rose gripped one of his fingers. Eli watched him with Mason's silver-gray eyes. Rowan noticed the resemblance, and Evelyn saw recognition pass through his face. He asked no question about their father. Instead, he placed 2 protection bracelets beside her and summoned the archive clerk. "Names?" the clerk asked. Evelyn looked down. "Eli Hart and Rose Hart." The clerk hesitated, glancing toward Rowan. Every court expected a king who protected heirs to claim them for his house. Rowan took the registry, wrote Hart himself, and sealed both entries. He added that custody belonged solely to Evelyn until each child could choose a pack. Only then did she allow herself to believe sanctuary might become home. At dawn, Clara tested blood from the infants against the moonstone locket. The first result confirmed what Rowan suspected. Mason Blackwood was their biological father. The second made Clara repeat the ritual twice. Silver light climbed Eli's left palm, forming an ancient crescent crossed by a sword. Rose's bracelet answered with the same glow. Rowan read the archive translation, then closed the doors. Both children fall under ancient crown protection. 13 months after the twins' birth, winter reached Blackthorn, before its storehouses were ready. Empty grain bins echoed beneath the pack house. Storehouses were ready. Empty grain bins, medicine carts arrived half-filled, and 3 villages refused to send taxes until their children received food. Mason stood at the head of the council table while angry voices struck him from every direction. Celeste sat in the Luna's chair, one hand resting protectively over her flat abdomen. For 6 weeks, she had claimed to carry Mason's air. Her pregnancy scent drifted through the room, sweet, metallic, and slightly wrong. She avoided healers, blaming exhaustion and threats against the unborn child. "We should seize supplies from the eastern villages," Celeste said. "Fear will restore order." Mason stared at the maps Evelyn had left behind. Her notes filled the margins in precise handwriting. Secondary roads, winter reserves, families requiring medicine. Celeste had dismissed the system as unnecessarily complicated. Now 2 bridges were closed. The main grain route had collapsed, and no one knew which hidden storehouses still existed. An elderly village leader pushed one of Evelyn's emergency plans across the table. "Your former Luna prepared for this exact winter. Why was her plan abandoned?" Because Celeste had called it wasteful. Because Mason had wanted every reminder of Evelyn removed. Because admitting the truth would mean accepting that Blackthorn's strength had never belonged to him alone. "We will correct the shortages," Mason said. "With what?" the elder demanded. "Your pride?" The room fell silent. Later, Owen Cross entered Mason's office carrying a leather ledger wrapped in oilcloth. His face had grown harder during the months since Evelyn's banishment. Guilt had done what battle never could. It had made him look old. "I found this behind the archive wall," Owen said. "Evelyn ordered duplicate records after the northern raids." Mason opened the ledger. The first pages matched the evidence used against her, but the final transfers were different. Dates had been changed. Patrol codes had been added after Evelyn left Blackthorn. One authorization carried her seal 3 days after the severance. "That is impossible," Mason whispered. Owen pointed to the signature. "Look at the final stroke." Evelyn always shortened the last line of her name when writing quickly. Mason had teased her about it for years. The signature before him was flawless, copied by someone who had studied formal documents but had never watched her work through the night. Mason's wolf surged against his ribs. "Why did you remain silent?" Owen's eyes hardened. "I was waiting for you to ask a question before passing another sentence." After Owen left, Mason opened the lowest drawer of Evelyn's former desk. A small velvet box rested beneath expired trade agreements. Inside lay one infant boot, cream-colored and embroidered with 2 silver moons. The matching boot was missing. He held it in his palm, unable to explain the dread moving through him. Celeste entered without knocking. The Luna ring sat on her finger, its moonstone dark despite the firelight. "The elders are questioning my coronation," she said. "They believe Evelyn's absence makes the ceremony look illegitimate." Mason closed his hand around the boot. "What do you suggest?" "Invite her." His gaze snapped upward. Celeste approached carefully. "Let the pack see what she became, a discarded woman without title, mate, or protection. Once she watches me crowned while standing among the servants, every rumor will die." The cruelty of the idea should have repulsed him. Instead, Mason imagined Evelyn entering alone. He imagined finally demanding answers, seeing regret in her eyes, proving that she had not built a life beyond him. He told himself the invitation served Blackthorn. Celeste prepared black vellum and wrote former consort beneath Evelyn's name. Mason hesitated when she added that the guest must attend alone, then pressed his alpha seal into molten wax. After he left, Celeste added a final instruction directing Evelyn to the servants' entrance. She smiled, unaware that an alpha's seal validated every clause on the page, including laws she had never studied. At Ashen Crown, Evelyn received the invitation during breakfast. Rowan watched her place it beneath the royal seal. Moonlight-colored letters rose across its hidden reverse. Evelyn read the ancient open hall law twice. Then she looked at Eli and rose. "He did not send me an insult," she said. "He sent me the right to put Blackthorn on trial." Blackthorn's great hall glittered with silver banners, winter roses, and carefully arranged humiliation. At the far end, 2 thrones stood beneath the carved wolf crest. Near the servants' entrance, Celeste had placed a narrow chair bearing a card marked former consort. Mason noticed it before the first guests arrived. "Remove that card," he ordered. Celeste adjusted the Luna ring on her finger. Its moonstone remained dark against her white ceremonial gown. You invited her to witness the truth. Let her understand where she belongs. Mason looked toward the empty chair again. For 13 months, Evelyn had existed only as an absence, missing signatures, abandoned plans, and questions he had refused to ask. Now the infant boot hidden in his coat felt heavier than a weapon. The coronation bells began. Celeste climbed the dais while Frostfang nobles applauded. Gideon Vale watched from the council section, his expression calm. Owen stood among Blackthorn's officers, one hand resting on the duplicate ledger concealed beneath his formal cloak. The herald raised his staff. Before he could announce Celeste, horns sounded beyond the gates. Not Blackthorn horns, royal ones. Every wolf in the hall turned as the doors opened. Cold air swept inside, carrying snow and the unmistakable pressure of an alpha king. Royal guards entered first, their black armor bearing Ashen Crown's gold wolf. Adrian Cole followed, holding a little girl wrapped in deep green velvet. Then Evelyn stepped through the doorway. She wore no crown. Her dark gown was cut like a military coat, fastened at the shoulder with the royal chancellor's seal. The silver mark of her severed bond remained visible above her collar. She did not look toward the chair Celeste had prepared. She walked down the center aisle as though the hall remembered her footsteps. Rowan Ashford entered behind her with a small boy resting against his chest. Mason forgot to breathe. The child lifted his head. Silver-gray eyes met Mason's across the hall, his mother's shape, Mason's color, and an expression far too observant for an infant. Adrian shifted Rose in his arms, revealing the same eyes beneath her brown-red curls. Whispers spread through the pack. Celeste gripped the Luna ring. She was ordered to attend alone. Evelyn stopped before the dais and unfolded the invitation. Ancient open hall law permits an invited guest to bring one protector and all legal dependents. Rowan's gaze settled on Mason. She selected me as her protector. No one challenged him. Mason descended one step. His wolf recognized something his pride had not yet accepted. The twins smelled faintly of cedar from Rowan's household, but beneath it lived blackthorn rain, ironwood, and his own blood. How old are they? He asked. Evelyn held his gaze. 13 months. The hall seemed to tilt beneath him. He calculated backward, despite already knowing the answer. Evelyn had been pregnant when he severed their bond. Celeste moved quickly down the dais, forcing a smile. What lovely children. Perhaps we should not disturb them with adult disputes. Rose reached toward the moonstone on Celeste's hand. The moment her fingers brushed it, the Luna ring blazed silver. Celeste cried out. Light surged around her hand, exposing thin red burns beneath the band. Eli twisted in Rowan's arms and stretched his left palm toward the glow. A crescent crossed by a sword appeared briefly on his skin. Gideon stood so abruptly that his chair struck the floor. Celeste pulled her hand away. A trick, royal magic. The ring has never answered you, Owen said from the officers' section. Her face hardened. Because it was damaged by the traitor who wore it before me. Mason stared at the twins. Are they mine? Evelyn's expression did not soften. You surrendered the right to ask me privately. Celeste laughed, too loudly. She brought children with familiar eyes and expects us to kneel. They could belong to any Blackthorn male. A growl tore from Mason before he could stop it. The columns vibrated beneath the force of his anger. Celeste recoiled, but Evelyn did not move. Bloodline testing, Mason ordered. Now, before the entire pack, Gideon descended toward the side exit. Royal guards closed the doors. Evelyn placed Mason's invitation beneath Rowan's royal seal. Silver words rose from the vellum, filling the air above them. Ancient law recognized her right to challenge the judgment that had stripped her title, property, and protection. I accept the bloodline test, Evelyn said, but the results will be heard with every other piece of evidence. Rowan stepped beside her. By crown authority, he declared, this coronation is suspended. The outer doors locked, the council benches sealed beneath bands of royal light. Celeste stared at the burning Luna ring, while Gideon searched for an escape that no longer existed. Rowan's hand settled on Evelyn's shoulder. These children did not come to beg for a name. They came to hear their father answer for what he did to their mother. Royal light sealed every door of Blackthorn's great hall. No alpha command could break it. No council privilege could dismiss it. Rowan stood beside the dais, not as Evelyn's judge, but as the authority preventing anyone else from silencing her. Evelyn placed the forged pack ledger on the central table. On the night I was condemned, she said, this document was called unquestionable proof. Mason remained below his throne, the infant boot in his pocket pressed against his palm. Evelyn opened the ledger to the transfer of Blackthorn's patrol routes. The authorization bears my signature. It was recorded on the 12th day of Harvest Moon. She placed a second document beside it. That same day, I was 300 miles away negotiating the Eastern Grain Treaty. Owen stepped forward. 16 witnesses signed the conference record. I verified each name. Gideon folded his hands. Aluna could have prepared the order earlier. She could, Evelyn replied. But the code on this page did not exist earlier. She pointed to the final line. Blackthorn had changed its patrol classification after a border attack 2 days before the supposed signature. Evelyn could not have authorized a code that had not yet been created. A murmur traveled through the pack. Mason examined the page himself. Frostroot crystals shimmered inside the ink beneath Rowan's seal. Blackthorn stopped using this ink 2 years ago, Mason said. Frostfang did not, Evelyn answered. Celeste's face lost its color. The side doors opened. Clara Wynne entered under royal guard, carrying a moonstone locket and 2 medical files. She stopped before Mason, visibly trembling. I was ordered to declare Evelyn infertile, she said. When I refused, Counselor Vale threatened my daughter. Gideon rose. A frightened healer will say anything under royal pressure. Clara opened the first file. This is the false report. Then she opened the locket. These are Evelyn's original blood results, sealed before Celeste ever entered Blackthorn. The moonstone projected Clara's signature, timestamp, and the unmistakable record of healthy fertility. Mason looked at Evelyn as understanding struck him. You knew, he whispered. I learned I carried twins the night you banished me. The words hit harder than any accusation. Mason's fingers closed around the boot inside his coat. The matching one had left Blackthorn with Evelyn, while she bled beyond the great hall doors. Celeste moved forward. This proves nothing about me. Adrian placed the council-marked arrowhead on the table, followed by Ashen Crown's contaminated supply records. Every poisoned shipment traced back to merchant houses acquired after Celeste arrived at Blackthorn. Rowan turned toward her. You claimed pregnancy to secure coronation. Submit to examination. Celeste backed away. I will not allow strangers to touch the air. Clara lifted a moonstone scanner. Its light passed across Celeste's abdomen and revealed no heartbeat, no developing child, only traces of moon blood tonic. The pack erupted. Mason stared at Celeste's hand resting over an empty womb. You lied. I did what was necessary, she snapped. You needed an heir. I needed protection. You needed my title, Evelyn said. Celeste's fear sharpened into rage. And you had everything without earning it. The Luna ring suddenly burned white. Rose began to cry in Adrian's arms, and Eli reached toward the sound. Their moonwarden marks appeared together. The ring released its oath memory. Silver images rose above the hall. Celeste entered Evelyn's archive carrying a copied seal. Gideon followed with replacement ledger pages. His recorded voice filled the chamber. Once Blackthorn collapses, emergency resource law gives the council control of the mines. Celeste's image asked, and Evelyn, dead women do not appeal verdicts. Gideon ran. Royal guards caught him before he reached the wall. Rowan broke the bloodline seal. Silver light connected Mason to Eli and Rose, then curved around Evelyn in a protective circle. Biological paternity confirmed, Rowan declared. Custodial claim denied, under abandoned heir protection and moon warden law. Mason sank to one knee. He removed the infant boot from his coat and placed it beside its matching partner, which Evelyn had carried into the trial. I was wrong, he said, his voice breaking before the entire pack. Restore the bond. Let me repair what I destroyed. Evelyn looked at the man she had once loved, then at the children he had failed before knowing their names. She walked past him. Mason remained kneeling beside the ring he had taken from her, while Evelyn crossed the hall to choose her children. Dawn entered Blackthorn's great hall through the glass roof, turning the royal barriers pale gold. Celeste stood without the Luna ring, her burned hand wrapped in white cloth. Gideon remained chained between 2 guards, while Rowan read the Sovereign Court's judgment. Counselor Gideon Vale was convicted of treason, attempted murder of protected heirs, falsification of pack records, and conspiracy to seize Blackthorn's mines. His council rank, property, and blood privileges were revoked. Celeste lost the Luna title, her inheritance in Frostfang, and every political protection purchased through the false pregnancy. She would serve 7 years in the border healing settlements, under guard, caring for families harmed by the shortages she had helped create. Celeste looked toward her father in the Frostfang delegation. He turned away. For the first time, she understood that the power she had chased had never intended to protect her. Mason removed the black-silver chain representing his council seat. He placed it on the evidence table beside the forged ledger. "I failed to investigate," he told the gathered pack. "I allowed fear, pride, and political pressure to become a verdict. No conspiracy forced my hand when I took Evelyn's ring. That choice was mine." The confession cost him more than an execution would have. Every wolf who had once trusted his judgment heard him name his failure. Rowan suspended Mason's control of the silver mines for 3 years. Blackthorn's resources would remain under independent supervision until every village had been repaid and every family of the dead patrolman had received restitution. Mason accepted without protest. Later, Evelyn found him alone in the courtyard, where winter roses grew along the stone walls. He held no crown, weapon, or alpha chain. Without them, he looked less like the man who had ruled her life, and more like someone forced to stand inside the ruins of his own decisions. "I found the boot after you left," he said. "I did not understand. You did not ask." His face tightened. "I should have investigated the ledger. I should have stopped the severance. I should have followed you when you stumbled at the door." Evelyn's hand moved briefly toward the scar on her right side. "You should have believed I deserved a hearing. I did love you. I know." The answer hurt him more than denial. She looked through the courtyard arch, where Eli and Rose played beneath Adrian's watch. Mason followed her gaze with naked longing. "I am not asking for custody," he said. "Only the chance to know them someday." "Blood gives you a connection," Evelyn replied. "It does not give you trust." She set 3 conditions. Mason would complete the restitution ordered by the court. He would attend supervised meetings with the twins only after a royal healer approved them. He would never use Alpha Command around the children. Mason agreed before she finished. "Do you forgive me?" he asked. Evelyn considered the question. "I may stop carrying anger. That is not the same as returning." She left him standing beneath the roses, alive enough to become better and accountable enough never to forget why he had to. At Ashen Crown, spring softened the black cliffs. Rowan waited in Evelyn's office while Eli slept against the window seat and Rose scattered wax seals across the carpet. He placed no ring before Evelyn. Instead, he opened a royal covenant. The first clause preserved the name Evelyn Hart. The second protected her property, command rank, and custody. The third stated that no mate bond, title, or royal claim could override her independent authority. The final clause gave her the right to leave Ashen Crown without punishment. Rowan placed the pen beside the document and stepped back. "No crown?" Evelyn asked. "A crown can be offered," he said. "It cannot be used as a cage." She read every line. Rowan waited without touching the paper. Then Evelyn signed her name. From a small box, she removed the silver of Blackthorn's old Luna ring. It had been melted and divided into 2 moonstone pendants, one for Eli and one for Rose. The past had not been erased. It had been reshaped into something that belonged to them. Evelyn fastened the pendants around her children's necks. Then she returned to Rowan and held out her hand. He did not claim it immediately. "Are you certain?" he asked. "Yes." Only then did his fingers close around hers. Rowan did not place a crown upon Evelyn's head. He lowered himself beside her, leaving the throne empty until she chose to walk toward it. And Evelyn Hart stepped forward not as a discarded Luna, a protected witness, or the mother of royal heirs, but as the woman who had finally chosen her own kingdom. So, Evelyn's story closes here not with a stolen ring, a broken bond, or a man's regret, but with her own hand, choosing what came next. "Are you still here with me?" Then maybe this story touched something familiar. Being betrayed is painful. Being misunderstood by the person who should know your heart can hurt even more. Evelyn could not control Mason's fear, Celeste's lies, or the council's schemes. What she could control was her response. She did not beg people to recognize her worth. She did not remain where loyalty had become humiliation. She left while she was hurting, protected her children, rebuilt her life, and learned to choose herself before choosing another man. That may be the quiet lesson here. Strength is not always winning the argument. It can be walking away without losing your character. It can be letting people face the consequences of their choices while you stop carrying those consequences for them. And yes, rebuilding your life is rarely as glamorous as arriving with an alpha king. Most days, it looks like getting up, doing the next right thing, and remembering where you left your coffee. If Evelyn's journey meant something to you, comment one word: dignity. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal, justice, and women who choose their own future.